GOP contenders as well as the Democrat contenders. Tammy, we'll begin with you.
Well, all polls show that 3/4 of the American people do not like the direction that the country is taking. They, majority, including Democrats, do not like Obama's approach with terrorism or foreign policy. So, and for Republicans, of course, they're even more furious. So this is going to add in and confirm the concerns of the American people about the nature of the decision making. Look, Iran, you heard that press conference, but they violated multiple UN sanctions over the last month with their testing of ballistic missiles. That meant nothing. They are refusing. We have not had any IAEA inspection of any of their nuclear facilities. It makes a mockery of the international rule of law. And look, history is rife with diplomats and politicians making big deals in the name of something very large like, oh, peace in our time, with monsters who do not keep up their end of the bargain. So I think this is going to be a big issue. Already the GOP candidates have spoken on it. Of course, it's a great day for the hostages. It's a great day for Iran, but it is not a good day for the world at this point.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the hostages in just a moment. But Chuck, to Tammy's point about the IAEA and this entire nuclear deal that actually was struck in July of 2015, there are many critics, Democrats alike, who are very fast and furious saying, look, the president should not have done this deal because of all the side deals and the fact that we're still not able, through this construct, to keep Iran where we needed them.
Yeah, and I think that the American electorate has a long memory, and I think they remember that we've lost 5,000 of our sons and daughters at a war that really didn't mean anything. So anytime we can use diplomacy to save our soldiers' lives, I think it's a good day. And I would remind people that we didn't go into this deal alone, that 20 of the world leaders did that with us. We have to control Iran, and by turning our back on it and not having diplomacy is a way that will not work. So we have to be in there, we have to be negotiating, and we have to be doing something, because if you just turn your back, it's going to end up being what it always is. And if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Chuck, you have a way with words. But let's get to the point. And that's the point of what's happened with the American prisoners, the fact that 4 have been released, a 5th who was not part of this deal, but they have been released, and Iranians have been released as well. So the White House is saying this is not a prison swap, but was an act of good faith, an act of goodwill to make sure that those 4 prisoners could return home to America. We now know that they are on their way. But Chuck, I have to tell you that there's quite a few Democrats, one in particular, Congressman Sherman out of California, says this is not a gift to America. This is really a deal that helps Iran all the way around.
I would trust my leaders. I'm glad that we got the hostages back, and it's a good day for these hostages that we got them back on American soil, or they're headed back to American soil right now. You're not going to make everybody happy with these deals, but as long as we're using diplomacy and we're trying to figure out how to talk to each other to get this stuff done, I think it's good. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this is played on the political field with these upcoming debates. I think that'll be the interesting thing on how we do this.
Tammy, Chuck makes a good point. How will this be played on the political field? Because we heard from Senator Ted Cruz, who basically said this is good for those who have been released. He doesn't know how it was done, and he doesn't know what kind of details were done. He feels that some of the conditions might have been questionable, but he's still happy nonetheless to see that the prisoners have been free.
Well, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are obviously happy the hostages are released, but then we owe it to future hostages to have a serious conversation about the nature of what transpired here, because this was really paying of the Danegeld does not diplomacy make. We have a nation that has took innocent men hostage. We've done a swap for including taking 14 of them off of the Interpol wanted list who blew up a Jewish center. This is something that is outrageous, and it tells you that Iran took hostages for gain. It worked. They've received not only $100 billion, but a nuke in the future. They can do as they please in the region. They've been able to violate UN sanctions. And so what this tells you is that when you give everything, and this goes back down to what do you give for what return? And this is what history shows us, is that when you give so much to a monster, it's not going to change them. They've given nothing, ultimately. These were innocent individuals. We should not have had to have done a swap or anything else to return them. And that is the important political conversation.
Indeed it is. And Chuck, I will give you the final word on this important political conversation, because at the end of the day, at least for today, the families are quite happy that their loved ones have been freed.
You know, I was in Iowa last weekend, and there's a lot of groundswell in Iowa on both sides, and we're less than 20 days from Iowa. It's going to be interesting to watch how the rhetoric happens on the right and the left on how we talk about it. National security is not a top issue with all Americans right now, driving them to vote, but it is in the top three, and it's creeped up higher than we've ever seen. So I think that the way that we have this dialect and talk about either diplomacy or lack of disrespect or actually talk about nuclear weapons is going to be very interesting on getting these voters out.
Chuck Rocha, Tammy Bruce, thank you.